Can I just say thanks? Thank you.
You got an intro.
I've never seen that either.
Got an intro.
It's fucking sick. Love it. It's funny as well, I've never seen my name written Dre La Barbera as well. It's either just Dre or Andre La Barbera, but Dre La Barbera. Never seen it before.
Anyway.
Sounded like gibberish, that.
Yeah, it did. If I had to make up a language, Dre La Barbera would be what my main character was saying in whatever language we were talking. All right, anyway. You all right?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm all right. You all right?
I'm all right, mate.
It's fucking a bit hot down here, actually, to be fair.
How
are you guys in the comments? All right?
Barcelona.
Well, let's not talk about the comments. Let's talk about what we were speaking about just before we got on air. And
Barcelona.
It's interesting. Barcelona's not too far away. They're doing bits.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Frankie de Jong revenge game. They've got a dodgy president. They're probably heavily influencing this Super League stuff together. Anyway, dodgy finances and all that. But
I mean, dodgy. I don't know if it's dodgy.
Crackhead
or just acting like they don't owe anyone anything.
Or just what the fuck.
Like, you got a mate who owes you some cash and you just see him out here just like buying new gear and like buying rounds in and stuff. You're like, you all right?
Exactly.
Don't you owe me a wanna?
Exactly. But the thing is, Europa League, what is out? This is what I might fire to the comments is, United fans haven't seemed overly asked about the Europa League, though.
Do you know what it is? I think it's because like this is the first time where like we were in for a shout for challenging for the title, and we potentially had the League Cup final nearer. So it's kind of like, let's forget about the Europa League.
I think it's just that we're more bothered about either posing some sort of challenge and solidifying top four than Europa League, when realistically this Barcelona game should be one of the biggest games of the season, because if we beat Barcelona over the two legs,
it's quite impressive. It's very
impressive, but then we're pretty much borderline favourites then.
I think
we're alongside Arsenal.
We're up there as favourites anyway, I think.
Yeah.
With Barcelona.
My problem with the Europa League, having seen United go to the last stages a few times in the last few years though, is it's just there's so much effort for potentially such little reward. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you remember when was it Sevilla who knocked us out in Project Restart in the semi? Then obviously we lost to Villarreal, and it's like, think about how many games we had to play to get there, and what do you remember from that? You don't remember our quarter final against Getafe or fucking.
But the theme tune, though, lads. Iconic. God, it's gash, innit?
Never harmonise that again.
Shit.
It's gash.
Both of you.
Yeah, but compare that to the Champions League one. Gets the hairs on the back of your neck standing up and like, see, you're grinning, right? No one's ever done that to the Europa League.
I'm grinning because I remember, in the Cliff they used to do that. I think when I was like 8 or 9, in the Cliff, they when there was a tournament on, they'd make the Champions League theme music.
Class.
What, when you were walking out?
Into the, when the Cliff had that huge inside Astro. I've not been in.
Still does.
Do you know what I mean? And it's it literally used to play that music, and it was pretty class.
See, but no one's ever gone, I know I'll get the lads up for this. Tim, stick to Europa League music on, lad. Keep behave yourself.
What's the Conference League theme tune?
I think it's the same. Surely there's not one.
I bet there is. I bet there must be. I bet there is.
Imagine being a composer and someone just send you an email saying, yeah, we're starting a new UEFA competition. It's going to be the 3rd tier one. Do you mind doing as a theme tune? And you're like,
what's the budget?
Fuck
11 quid.
It's like, I'll spend 10 minutes on that later tonight before I go to bed.
We've got, someone's already said it in the comments, but we've got no Martinez for the first game. Obviously that's going to be a factor because he's an absolute beast. Against Lewandowski as well. Do you think Luke Shaw can do a job centre half against him? Because we're not playing Harry Maguire, are we? Do you know what I mean?
Well, we're going to find out, aren't we? And we've got previews and stuff to come out of that. We'll probably do a little bit of extra content about it because it is Barcelona and it is a massive game for us. But we got to get through what we got to get through first. This month is huge. There's so much for United to play for this month, and it could literally be both extremes. We could be out of everything, I think. Is there an FA Cup game this month?
Probably.
We could be out of everything, or we could be still in everything and won something.
Yeah, can you imagine
Both of those things are well on the table for us within the next 4 weeks.
I don't think that happens though. I mean, like we've seen it.
Something's going to happen in between those.
Well, I mean, that one over there.
What, win it all and still be in it?
No.
I don't think we're beating Barcelona.
Me neither. Which is very pessimistic, but I just think the amount of games we've got, goodness me, especially that second leg when we've got the League Cup final, the Sunday after.
I disagree. I think it's going to be nip and tuck. I think it will go down to the very, very last. Very, very, very last. Maybe I'm going to be very specific. 10, 15 minutes or so the second leg, where it's still hanging in the balance. I feel like they will be favourites. They probably are one of the most informed teams in Europe, but it doesn't mean that United can't do a job. I think this current United team often does better as a bit of an underdog, if anything. And I think Ten Hag can cook up something nice.
It's nice if he does. If he pulls off beating Barcelona and we don't fall off the pace in the league and we win the EFL Cup, man, that's a hell of a month, isn't
You're
it?
telling me Ten Hag treble?
Cup treble.
I find it unlikely. But like, who have you genuinely got to be scared of in this country?
What football team wise?
We beat them all. We have beat them all.
We haven't beat Chelsea yet.
But
All right.
was it
3-1
Chelsea?
remember?
We haven't beat half the
yeah.
championship either. So what's relevant to that?
We didn't beat Brentford either. Oh no!
But
We
all
playing
the teams that you should be scared of, Newcastle aside,
Yeah.
we beat them all. Like you Liverpool, City, Arsenal.
Yeah,
They've
but
all
I
been
think
put away.
it's the congestion of fixtures which
of
is
course it
going
is.
to allow us to slip up. And like, obviously, we had that against Leeds the other night. We might have it against Barcelona. I'm just hoping that we don't have it in the League Cup final.
I'm trying to limit how much I'm drinking and all at the moment. But if this month goes to plan,
You can
that's
have
not
it.
going to happen. That's not going to happen. I'm going to treat the League Cup.
Yeah, fucking hell, mate. We've got to. We haven't won a trophy since 2016, 17? 17.
Yeah, it does. It's a pressure lifter, isn't it? Because it's definitely been too long without a major honour, and I think.
It was a nice day out when we won it with Jose.
And it
was like, no,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like overly celebrated. I don't even know if I think we had a beer after it, actually, but I didn't go out.
get to stick it to the Geordies.
Whereas this time around,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Well,
I'm
I'm
like
buzzing.
carnival sort of vibes.
It was my first United final at Wembley, so I'm just buzzing. Fucking whatever happens.
Right,
nice.
the
Gonna
Super
get on it.
League. So this little turd reared its head above the water earlier this week.
Again.
But when it didn't, you knew it weren't gone. It would just sort of went, all
So
right,
telling
see you
me-
next year.
It's just a floaty in it.
Yeah.
Up
Unflushable.
and down, up
Unflushable
and down,
float.
And it is
up and
definitely a turd. So the new format they've come back with: 80 teams, guaranteed 14 games per season, multi-divisional, which I think has got an interesting element to it. And the people that are involved with the European Super League believe that football across the continent is in danger, and they are apparently being the self-appointed guardians to save it. What? See, Barcelona did this. I mentioned this on air a couple of times recently, but it's in the book Barca, and they're sort of besmirching the Premier League and moaning like they can't keep up with the Premier League because the way the TV revenues are given to the Premier League. Lads, you made and owe $1 billion.
Yeah, and them and Real Madrid get way more of the TV revenues in Spain than any other clubs. It's not
Yeah.
even like evenly distributed.
So
in
it is
England.
interesting that they've condemned the Super League so much, but I don't know whether because we have to remember in terms of Super League that pretty much all of these teams we support were in agreement with it.
Mhm.
They're all was going ahead, and it was only due to backlash why they kind of delayed it. No one ever thought they basically said no, it would never happen. I just felt like the fan kind of uproar just kind of got in their heads a little bit, and then they kind of sat back. But then people, even the Real Madrid, Florentino did say it's going to come back.
Yeah, but that's interesting.
And it has come back literally less than a couple of years later.
Isn't it? But that's interesting you say that because there's another point on there. It's that 5 Premier League clubs distance themselves from the plans. One senior executive called the announcement laughable. And it's like, hang on, mate. Literally, was it a year or two ago?
A year ago.
A year ago,
It was April
you
last
were
year, I
like
think.
behind this fully, literally what you said, Ronnie. And now like the Premier League clubs are like, oh no, this is laughable. What do you mean it's laughable? How can it be laughable?
You wrote
now?
it, you dickheads!
You invented it last year.
Literally, like the five of the main people
Ridiculous.
was Liverpool's owner, the Glazers, someone involved with Arsenal, I forget who, and Daniel Levy. Weren't they all pictured together at a restaurant in New York?
Yeah.
Wasn't that like one of the genesis moments of this thing? Don't be fucking calling it laughable when you wrote it.
Because at the end of the day, these aren't just they're businessmen, first and foremost. And the Super League's going to heavily fill their pockets, so why wouldn't they be in accordance with it?
Yeah, but it just
So that's
shows
what-
to me that they're all scared. They're scared because they're trying to survive. They're trying to react. All right, let's do this Super League because it guarantees us money every single season. It guarantees this, it guarantees that.
They want the
Everyone's
American
like,
franchise
what the fuck
model.
are you doing? They're like, oh, sorry. And now they're calling it laughable. They're trying to survive. They're scared.
There's a lot of Premier League teams want the American sort of franchise model where that's the league and it's locked out. But obviously, we are literally in and actually a lot of people that are owning it around this table and in the chat are club owners of a team that is in the pyramid. Okay, we're at the very bottom of the pyramid, but it's still a pyramid, and at the top of that pyramid sits the Premier League. But it's all interconnected, and one of the strengths of English football, one of the most beautiful things about Britain actually, is our football pyramid. The way it connects communities, the way it is a focal point for a lot of small towns and stuff like that. The football in this country is if your experience of football is from being from a place like Texas or something like that, where there's a couple of very, very big super clubs in a very, very big state, which is about the size of Britain anyway. There's only a couple of football clubs in that. There are thousands and thousands of football teams in England that are all interlinked in the pyramid. If you look at the first round of the FA Cup, you've got to do some work to even get into the hat for the FA Cup. And below that, there is a whole other pyramid of teams that do not, like Paddock, do not qualify for the FA Cup. But we're all interlinked and we're all able to attain and reach that level. We got a game tomorrow against Wimbledon Amateurs. They came through our path. They're now in the likes of the FA Cup. They're now moving through what they've done. That's the beauty of English football, is that some random YouTuber can have an idea of creating a football team and a few years later see them into the FA Cup and theoretically see them move all the way to the Premier League. That's the beautiful thing about football in this country. Locking it out as a Super League is basically going to take away the worth of that entire house of cards of a pyramid. And if you lock it in the way it's been locked in now, I do have a worry because there seems to be some rules coming into the Champions League, which is seeming to take in a lot more sort of historical performance.
This isn't closed shop though, this new proposition. That's what's interesting about it. And that's something that they've listened to. There's no permanent members like in their first proposal, which shows that like it's not as bad and it might actually...
Isn't there still something about founder members of guaranteed? Like,
I don't think so.
I'm yesterday with the research, it just basically said there were no permanent members.
Yeah. Which is I mean, it could just
David
be
Howson has said
better,
Super League isn't trying to replace the Premier League, it's trying to replace European competitions.
which is true.
It is. That is true. But if it becomes this thing where you're playing the likes of Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Juventus on a weekly basis, the relevance of the Premier League, especially when you no longer need to, if it is a meritocracy, that's one thing. But if you no longer need to have the same sort of qualification that you do now for the cup competition that we all like in the Champions League, then you're harming the Premier League and all of the European leagues by doing so.
I will be honest though, it's still early days. These are we haven't got the full proposition of what it's going to be, and this is definitely better than what it was. And this is quite. Do you know? It kind of the first thing I thought of when I looked into it is like it's sort of like a mix between the Champions League and sort of like the Nations League. Do you know what I mean? In international football, like because the Nations League obviously is you have different divisions, and each season you can go up and down. Obviously, it's not the same as that. It's a lot bigger. But I think the main thing is, and this is a valid point, if you're, say for example, clubs like Everton can get managers like Carlo Ancelotti, clubs like Leeds can sign players like Weston McKennie now. The Premier League is almost arguably as enticing as it ever has been because there's so much money here.
That line there, though, the sustainable. Where is it?
That was literally the point I was going to mention. I said the thing that the
well-enforced and transparent financial sustainability rules.
Yeah, but it's basically like these other countries. If you're Spanish, if you're a French football fan, you look at the Premier League and it's not fair because there's so much drive to go there. Now, I guess the Super League is trying to kind of even that out a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Because basically what you're saying is, if you're looking at tiers with the top 5 leagues, especially when it comes to players within leagues, Premier League seen as the pinnacle.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a young star and you're in the French league, you're in the Serie A, you're in the Portuguese league, which I believe is the top 5 league now. Would you, as a player, all their best players are going to eventually end up in the Premier League, is what they're thinking.
Yeah.
So it almost seems like this type of system where the Premier League is the Super League anyway, and the other leagues are divisions below.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's what they're trying to kind of like mesh out of it a little bit.
Yeah,
because
somehow.
obviously people, it's not always the case. I think in the Serie A, they say Italian players usually don't venture to the Premier League too much, but in general terms, the rest of the leagues, all their players, if they're looking for a elevation in their careers or they're trying to move to somewhere better, it's always a Premier League side.
Yeah.
And then the Premier League gets stronger, it gets more acclaim, it gets richer, and then the gap between the Premier League and the rest of the leagues widens.
Exactly.
I think that's what the likes of Florentino are more obsessed with.
Yeah.
Florentino's a bad bell-end hypocrite. Like, they broke the world record transfer fee more than anybody else, right?
Yeah,
That's their game. That's what they do. Barcelona and Real Madrid, I do not respect their opinions in this because I think they have forced this sort of arms race, financial arms race in terms of wages, especially wages in football, more so than even City and PSG have, in my opinion, and for longer. You know, these have been breaking the world record transfer fee for the longest arse time, and doing so going into debt. Now, for me, the way they've gone into debt is almost as much financial doping as doing it with a sugar daddy, because Barcelona ain't I think Barcelona's paying that billion off. It's got more chance of me paying that billion off, right, than them ever going.
Do you reckon?
Unless they get.
Do you reckon you got more money than Barcelona?
I'm going to start importing. Never mind.
Oh dear.
Where is the cocaine? Listen.
We're on about fucking fruit.
Bananas. Right, listen. I don't respect Florentino Perez's opinions on this because I think he is a shark in this that has caused this. Yeah. Now, Italian football, I kind of respect their opinions on it, but I also know Italian football is crooked. So I almost don't respect their opinions on it either.
It's mostly Juventus, though, isn't it?
It is, but like I know there's some great clubs like AC Milan.
Are you on about
Milan,
like
etc.?
You think, are you claiming the Serie A is and the Italian teams, they're very tied into the criminal underworld, is what you're saying?
Well, no, I'm saying it's literally proven that their games were cooked. It was literally proven. That's why Juventus was relegated in the 2000s.
Juve give it a bad rap, though, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I can understand, like, and, you know, if you look at attendances pre and post that, the appetite's gone. And the appetite's gone because they killed it. Like, you know, if you're going watching a rigged game, you ain't going. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I can almost feel sorry for Italian football because I think with the oil money that's come into the game in a big way, it feels like that league has suffered more than any other. It feels like the French league is slowly getting elevated by PSG and the exploits of what Monaco have done in recent years. It feels like the Spanish league is always strong. The Premier League has kind of always been strong since United won the Champions League in '99. German leagues dipped in and out of sort of hipster favoritism.
Yeah.
And as you said, the Portuguese league, who's it just overtaken?
Is it French?
Was it the Portuguese league or the French? It might have been the league, French league. Actually,
and then you've always had Holland as sort of like a very technical league.
That was outside of it.
Yeah, it doesn't really.
The top five was it the Spanish, the Bundesliga, obviously the Premier League,
Serie
A,
and then it was like Liga One.
That was League One, but now it's the Portuguese.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, and one of the reasons why the Premier League is as competitive as it is because of the egalitarian TV deal that was enshrined in like the constitution of the Premier League when it was formed in like 1991, I think, when they decided to make the Premier League. Obviously, it started in 92, but I think the decision making was done in 91 around it. And that's one of the things that City have been railing against since their investment from Abu Dhabi, is they're trying to break that. It's like the first thing in the Premier League constitution, which is the fair, equitable share of TV revenue. They're constantly raging against it. And I think there's a real danger here that whilst it would be understandable that clubs want more money and clubs want to be greedy, I think having that sort of equitable share does keep not just the competition strong at the top level in the Premier League. I think it actually helps. Like, if you look at some, I mean, none of them are making money, which is not a good thing. But you look at some of the squads in the Championship, they're good squads. Like, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if someone told me that the Championship is actually the 5th biggest league in Europe.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The thing is as well is, like, you know what we were saying earlier about how the Premier League is way more enticing because of what you just said and other reasons. It's like the problem with this Super League is if it's going to replace the Champions League, how is it solving that issue? Because it's not really, is it? Okay, there's going to be 80 teams involved as opposed to 64 that are in the Champions League. That's a few more. But like the Champions League's just like it doesn't solve that issue, does it? Like the Premier League's still the best. La Liga's behind. Blah 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 blah. And that will always be like that. This replacing the Champions League is not going to improve that. We need to actually improve the domestic leagues. Do you get me?
Another interesting.
Do you go back to like the foreigner rule, or is that too restricted because of the EU rules on trade restrictions?
As in to stop so many foreigners coming to the Premier League? Because you want the
Well,
foreign players moving
that,
around, but you want them just going to different countries more.
Yeah, like
evenly,
if you're like,
as opposed to all just one.
Let's use Bulgaria as an example. Bulgaria's had some absolute ballers come through, but there's no budget to develop the game in Bulgaria. Like, I went and watched CSK Sofia against Ludogorets, 2 teams that regularly find themselves playing European football. That stadium wouldn't be fit for Northwest counties. There was a guy outside giving newspapers out. I didn't take one because I don't read Bulgarian. So, but I didn't realise he wasn't giving the newspapers out for you to read. You need it to sit on because the plastic chairs have been bleached by the sun that much that when you get up, you're wearing your seat or half of it. I didn't realise that was the case. That's one of the reasons I love travelling to go and experience stuff, is to experience stadiums like that. This stadium looks like it was built in 1908 and then left. Like, and that was it. It looks like it's had no work done on it since.
We should do that XG in Eastern Europe.
Go
watch a game.
Let's go watch a game.
That'd be sick.
Another point I saw earlier up on there was, did someone say per new Premier League rules?
I saw
that
prevent Premier League teams from joining
the Super League.
Yes.
If they did join it, would it just mean they won't be in the Premier League anymore?
Yeah, but then they need to be.
Well, I think the guy who came out and said, like, announced this, he basically said that we don't really need the English clubs.
No, all right, so, okay. Because if the English clubs...
Which is not true.
They'd go join the Super League, which means they would have to be removed from the Premier League. Obviously, I don't know if to include City in that because they might be removed anyway. But I'm thinking, what a good question would be is, who do you reckon wins the league or finishes top 4 without the traditional top 6 in the league?
At the moment, Newcastle.
Do you think Newcastle will be title winners?
100%. Thing is as well.
Who would your top 4 be? That's an interesting question. Without the traditional 6, they've gone to the Super League. Who'd finish top 4?
Yeah, because you think some club status gets elevated without, like at Everton. Could Everton become a top 4 club without the top 4 being there? Can they flip it and be a bit of a bully in the league?
I know what you mean. It's not as simple as just taking out the top 6 and
Brighton.
seeing what
I think it'd be Newcastle.
What if it's Brighton?
Everton, Brighton, and 4th place Villa.
West Ham.
Villa. I reckon Villa or West Ham.
Yeah, West Ham actually is
West
not
Ham
a worse shout.
Yeah, because they would become the bigger clubs, right? Do you know what I mean? Because they're like kind of the next section of big clubs in England, so they'd take that spot. Newcastle would win it though every time. Thing is, Newcastle, surely they want to get involved in this Super League. Surely. They're like all of a sudden in the conversation. I don't know, I think it's interesting because it will get to a point where English clubs will either have to join or it just implodes the whole thing, because then all of a sudden you're going to have this Super League without the English clubs, and then people aren't going to want to play for the English clubs anymore. Because, you can play in the Champions League every year, where the Champions League is literally just English clubs. It's not the same,
Yeah,
is
it's
it?
funny. I reckon if
They've
that
got
did
decisions
happen
to
and
make.
Tottenham stayed in the Premier League, I feel like they still wouldn't win it.
With
Just their
Newcastle, they
DNA.
definitely would.
Witterbird says, would you see the Scottish Premier League joining the Super League? Why?
I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Rangers
though.
and Celtic.
It's going to be interesting what happens because, like I said, if everyone joins like we've seen football clubs and organisations and leagues just change their decision for their own good. And if English football is a threat from not joining a Super League, I think they just eventually will. Despite the rules, they'll just change the rules.
Yeah, I mean, I know there was a lot of opposition. Sir Matt Busby was the reason Manchester United stepped into European football. I think the European Cup had been going a couple of years, maybe just a year before United were invited after winning the league. I think, was it 55? And he was like, oh no, I like this. So we're doing this. Or 55 or 56, I think it was, and we entered it. Because Samant could see the vision. And the vision at the time was so much purer, and I don't think money was a driver of it in the 50s. I think it was the pure pursuit of competition. Like, all right, we're the best team in England. What are they about? Especially when you got no telly to watch. Like, we're so spoiled now that we can go watch the Bulgarian league on telly. Like, can you imagine how mystical Bulgarian players would have been in the 50s?
Yeah,
when it takes you 6 hours on a fucking train to go to London. Like, I think the pursuit of what Sir Matt and his vision was when we joined it was in aid of competition. And I think the Super League has got an air of competition about it, but the driver is no longer competition. Driver is revenue.
Yes.
And sustainable, bonkers amounts of revenue.
Yeah.
And I don't know if sustainable is even the correct word for that. I think that they're thinking cash grab. Because look, man, if Barcelona have gone $1 billion in debt with their vast revenue of $1 billion, you know, they're earning $1 billion and they owe $1 billion, right? So you can't tell me that if you give them 1.2 billion, they're not just going to go and just pile in more debt. They're not paying that shit down. They're just piling the debt up. Anyway, to make sure we don't pile up the debt, we've got a little sponsor read for you. Righty, so have you heard of Circle? If you haven't, I'm about to tell you. This is a new sweepstakes game that is shaking up the football world. So what's Circle all about? Basically, it's a game that will give you real-time events in live football to determine the winner. Think of it a little bit like a pass-the-hat sort of game, where the leader is always on top, and it's very simple. This weekend, Circle is running a special countdown mode. Every 15 minutes, 10% of the pot is going to go to the person who's on top at the time, and with a 50% payout at the end of the game. So you could walk away with some serious cash. And if you're feeling adventurous, you can even set up your own circle with a group of friends. Choose your rules, set your buy-ins, and you can even maybe win some money off your friends as well. So it's a new way of doing a sweepstake or an ACCA or just a little bet that you do for the game on the weekend. Plus, there's even a sweet bonus. Use the referral code Howson, that is HOWSON, when you sign up. Deposit a $5, and you will get a free £5 bet. Just remember, always gamble responsibly. Make sure you're 18 and residing in the UK before you play. Come and join me on Circle, and let's see who comes out on top. Links in the description.
Yeah, sounds good, that, doesn't it?
So, questions from all y'all.
Hit us.
Brian says, fecking trains, the Irishness sleeping out. That's Irish John, that is. Can Circle shave balls?
Yeah.
We will find out. Brun says, Scottish League has had more success than the French League.
Has it?
Well, they both got one European Cup each, right? And although the Marseille one.
Is that just because
proven that?
Is it because Rangers got to the final of?
They lost, didn't they, the Europa League last year?
Celtic's achievement in 1967 was incredible. The Lisbon Lions, all born within a mile.
Do you know what's insane though?
Of Glasgow.
Do you know what's insane? French gets touted as a farmers' league, and it's been dropped below the Portuguese league, which isn't that strong anyway. But in terms of talent translating to the Premier League, it's probably the best league for it. Do you remember?
Players that come
It's
over.
not the best league for it. Statistically, the Liga is the best league for it.
But not statistically, but
Yeah,
like
we
in
did that
terms
video,
of,
didn't we?
I'm on about
Yeah,
like
that was interesting.
athletic profiling.
But I think
Because-
we've took a lot of bigger stars from the Liga, which is why their stats have
Yeah.
worked harder.
I think if you're looking for young, promising players or diamonds in the rough, the French league is pretty good. It's generally quite athletic. It might not have some of the quality, but it's just as dynamic and it's just as it's got athletes in it. Do you know what I mean? I remember Thingy said this. Oh, shit.
Right, hang on. Sorry, I got a couple of comments that I need to read out there. The first one is Paddock's game against Wythenshawe. So we're playing Wythenshawe amateurs tomorrow. It's at, I believe, he said, is it at Holly Hedge Park Ground or is it at MEA? It is at Holly Hedge Park, which I believe is now known as the Selco Builders Warehouse Community Stadium, Wythenshawe, which might be the longest stadium name in the bleeding world. But that's where we're playing tomorrow, and well done on them for getting a sponsorship on their stadium. Fergal McClements with a super chat there says, I love that Ronaldo finds out exactly what he's going to say at the same time we do. And then Greg says, is Ronaldo a flat earther? And then someone else says, Ronaldo bagged 4 goals last night. Not him, the other one. You were showing me some locusts all over that place. It didn't look full either, did it?
No.
On
Imagine being
the
in the
Ronaldo
stadium.
flat earth type stuff, for everyone who's a patron, and if you're not a patron, become a patron and help support the channel. We're taking Ronaldo to the aquarium next week.
Finally. Long time in the making, that, isn't it?
The one, I'm just going to try and keep a camera on him from when we gets in the car till we drop him off.
Now
Because some of the one-liners are going to blow your mind.
No, but which aquarium?
Don't you worry about that. You just get in the car, we'll pick you up and we'll
Traps
figure out
enough.
the rest.
Are you excited? You excited?
I'm intrigued.
Intrigued? How was it?
Cheers for that, Josh.
I was going to say, you could have brought him along.
We tried to go in Qatar because we thought the Qatarium was, for starters, the best name that we've ever seen for a potential aquarium.
That
The
is
Qatarium.
amazing. That is amazing.
And what was the Qatarium? It was a place which sells
Sold
fish
fish
tanks.
Amazing.
It
Amazing.
was so anticlimactic, it was unbelievable.
What made you think it was an aquarium? Did you check it out on Google?
We searched aquariums in Qatar.
And it came up.
Did you rock up?
No, just as the day we had a bit of free, because people go, oh, how was your holiday? What holiday, mate? Honestly, I was doing 18-hour days. It was bonkers. So we had a day. Was it when the quarters were starting, somewhere around then? It actually started to chill out a little bit. So we was like, all right, let's try and get this aquarium thing done. And then we Googled it, and it was like, there are no aquariums in Qatar. And the closest one to it, we went to the zoo, didn't we? But we got there, it was dark.
It's a fucking desert, though.
And then,
if there was
and
an
then
aquarium there.
Oh my God. So we bump into a giraffe, and you just need to film him. The entire time that you're just walking around the place, you just need to film him, because the one-liners, they don't need to make sense, which is lucky because they don't. I can't wait for this. Do you reckon you'd score 4 in the Saudi League? You don't score 4 in the Cheshire League, so let's maybe not answer that.
I think I might get I might get more chances in the Saudi League.
Whitbird says, taking my boys to Manchester Aquarium. Manchester Aquarium, is that a thing? I'm going to go Blue Planet.
Is that the Trafford Centre one?
No, it's in like St Helens sort of way. I think it's St
Is it
Helens.
Sea Life, the one in the Trafford Centre? Sea Life.
Is that
Ronaldo
any good
Brown
though?
didn't know there were rats in Manchester. What are you on about?
Oh.
Yeah, I did.
There's been construction work going on at the back of our office building, right? But it didn't used to be. So I believe there was a fire at next door.
Really?
Yeah, so you've seen the new building that's there. So they saved the facade on the front, which is quite nice, but then they've built like basically 90% of a new building. But what was there was just like it was like a brick sort of hardcore car park for a little bit. There was nothing there. Do you remember leaving here, like when you first started here and walking down that alley, but when you could still walk down that alley?
Which alley?
Was there rats?
The one at the back. Oh, there was like 20, 30 rats every time you walked down it.
Really?
Oh,
With
it
their
was-
Is it when we used to film the some of the fan cams in that alley?
Yeah, but do you remember, I think even when we started filming fan cams, they'd already started building work there, I think.
Did you ever
Do you remember
a
the rats
rat
in that
fan
alley?
cam?
Yeah, I've seen them.
Loads of them. Absolutely loads.
Looking out the size of them. Like
Yeah,
cat-
Ben Solver says Blue
like
Planet
cats.
sells
Rats are
Mayport.
grim,
Yeah,
mate.
that's the one we're going.
It's the tails, isn't it, on rats?
Which one?
Fucking hell.
Which one?
Oh, she's going to the Sea Life Centre. That must be the Trafford Centre.
Which one are you
Never
going?
been to that one. We're going to Blue Planet, Ellesmere Port.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that'd be a good crack, wouldn't it? That'd be a good video.
Yeah, well, so we're taking him and my 4-year-old, so they'll have really good conversations.
Has she been to an aquarium before?
Yeah, but she was very young.
She can tell him about it then.
She won't
Show 'em
remember it.
around.
She won't remember it. We took a one in Newquay, I think, and it wasn't very good. The one there is pretty good. Blue Planet's pretty good, so we'll see. Alex Bailey says, would love to know Ronaldo's thoughts on how the pyramids were built.
Conspiracy is aliens, isn't it?
Thing is, that's not even a conspiracy because no one knows. It's not like there's a story and then there's
Obviously,
like
I don't want to be.
other stories against it. No one knows.
It's Egyptian mythology, innit? But I feel like I don't know. I feel like because it's so technical and advanced in the way that pyramids have been made, people just kind of assume that humans shouldn't have been capable of doing that back then. But how do you know for sure?
Yes, yeah, I love that argument that not argument, but I love the idea that obviously we think now that we're like the most technically advanced and clever as humans ever have been.
They struggle to build the pyramids, I think, won't they, the same way?
That's what I mean.
They could do it, though.
But there's a chance that there was just a human civilization that was like way more advanced than us. We just don't know about it. I love that idea.
What's your thoughts, Ronnie, on...
See, I've said Khonshu built it. So Khonshu is an Egyptian god.
Is it?
In mythology. So he thinks a mystical god's built it.
So, what's your thoughts on the pyramids, Angkor Wat, and the likes of Chichen Itza all having sort of alignments to the stars all around like the middle of the equator, all separated by vast continents, all kind of like pointing at the same sort of stuff? Do you think someone's trying to tell us something?
Nah.
Yeah, you know what Angkor Wat is, right?
I don't know.
Cambodia.
I don't know what Angkor Wat is. But
is it?
I can kind
Basically, there's all of these things which like point to the stars all around 10, 12,000 years ago. All have got like buildings that sort of align to different stars, because like the pyramids align to Orion's belt, don't they?
I've no idea. Then they just all point to the stars. They just all point up.
Yeah, but they're in the shape and sort of dimensions of Orion's belt.
No idea. I don't know much about astrology. I don't really get it.
I don't know. Maybe
Stars. Because stars don't move.
it sounds very extraterrestrial, doesn't it? Stars don't move.
Oh, yeah, of course they don't move because they're suns, aren't they? So they just stay, and then everything moves around them. So I'm guessing if the Earth's moving...
Do they? Because our sun's moving.
Is it? Oh, yeah, but I don't know, man. See,
So the sun moves. I thought it's the we move around it.
yeah, but then the whole solar system moves.
But the sun's moving. So everything looks like a big corkscrew.
Yeah. It's like...
Does that mean stars do move then?
Oh, check this
Yeah.
out, right? So
and we might be moving with them.
I heard of something the other day where there was a guy that was deaf shortly after birth. So I think he was born and could hear, went deaf shortly after birth, and then has recently had an operation or an implant which allowed him to hear. And do you know what the first thing he said was?
What?
I thought the sun made a noise.
Hey?
He was surprised that the sun didn't make a noise.
Wow.
Isn't that mental?
Yeah. And that's like what, like when you actually think about that, he's not an idiot for thinking that at all.
No, it's a nuclear reaction just a long time ago. And then someone went, because space is a vacuum and the sun doesn't travel, you don't hear a sound. But if it did, it would be like a pneumatic drill going constantly.
That would be loud.
How mad's that?
That would be
all day,
loud.
every day. That's what my ears are like with my tinnitus.
Seriously, all the time.
Yeah.
And how do you get
But
it?
obviously,
Loud noises.
a sun,
Big explosions.
sun obviously does make noise, though, is what you're getting at.
It does, but it doesn't travel because space is a vacuum, so there's nothing for the molecules
Do you reckon it'd be
to bang
deafening
into.
if you could get close enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about it. Look how far away it is. We can see it.
Fucking the amount of energy coming off that move.
Bruno Fernandez says the Milky Way rotates once every 200 million years. Wowzers.
Around what though? Oh wait, rotates. It does one turn.
Yeah.
That's when space is mad because it's like we're moving around a sun, which is moving, which is part of a galaxy, which is moving, which is part of a universe, which is moving, and then what, and then what, and then what. That's infinity, man. Infinity's mental. Do you know what's mad? So like, right, me and you, Steve.
Sorry, Sleeping Bear says it's a different night sky now compared to 10,000 years ago. There's been more than one North Star. Yeah, but there's something to do with precession that they've figured out, like that the Sphinx would have been looking at its own, what's it called? What are they called? Their own constellation?
The Sphinx.
Yeah.
What's that? The thing in Egypt.
Yeah, with the thing in Egypt with the head that makes no sense.
So he's looking at something.
Definitely was a lion, by the way. Yeah.
No, I don't know. But yeah, the point I was going to make, or the thing I was going to say is, there's always a halfway point between 2 points, right? So there's a halfway point between me and you. And then if I stand in that halfway point, there's another halfway point, and then there's another halfway point. So in theory, I should never actually reach you, because there's always a halfway point. It gets infinitely smaller. But then that's not true, because like I can reach you. That's a bit of a mind fuck, isn't it? Do you get that?
I get what you're trying to say, but it still doesn't make any sense, because at the end of the day, you're closing the distance between you and the endpoint. No matter.
Yeah.
So the half point doesn't matter.
But there should always be a gap, because it's getting infinitely smaller. There's always a halfway point, right? At what point is it just like, no, there's no halfway point?
When you reach him.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. Yeah, infinity, man.
Minerva says that's Zeno's paradox.
Is it? Who's Zeno?
Jarin says, what's my take on Radcliffe going in the same direction as the Glazers? Well, once I've waded through all the tweets telling me I'm wrong, I'll probably do a video on it. Listen, I understand businesses take debt to avoid paying certain amounts of taxes, and I understand that large corporations want to use debt to acquire assets because there's benefits to doing so. I understand that's how a lot of businesses work. But when you start putting in a lot of the language and ideas of, well, we're going to use a little bit of debt to buy this asset, and then that asset's going to appreciate throughout the time that we own it, and therefore the pressure on that asset will be less because it should go up in value, blah, 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 over the time that we own that asset. That's exactly what the Glazers did. And whether or not it's a different structure, whether or not the debt is going on Ineos instead of the club itself, there will be a pressure for the club to return the investment, even if it's just not just on the debt, which, I mean, the debt that the Glazers have got at the moment is a fraction of what it's going to cost to acquire the football club. Probably 10 times, yeah? By 10 times. Now, that has hindered and hampered Manchester United for the last 17 years. If you as a Manchester United fan have experienced the last 17 years and you go, yeah, buy the club with debt, you're a fucking idiot, right?
Yeah. I agree with that.
The way that people are painting this up, it's almost like anyone is better than the Glazers. And I largely agree. Anyone is better than the Glazers. However, if that anyone has to have somewhere in the region of 10 times the amount of debt the Glazers has got, which is the extreme end, that would mean that they've bought us entirely with debt. And I think they're only buying a portion of us with debt. So it's up to 10 times. If it's anyone that's buying us with debt, then I don't understand how. And people will say, oh, the debt's going to be on Ineos and it's not on United. Doesn't matter. There will still be a requirement for Manchester United to put into the kitty that is Ineos at some stage. Whether that is through dividends that are taken out, whether that is through them able to borrow more things against Manchester United because it's an asset. They are not... Here's the bottom line. Are they buying us and going to clear out all Manchester United's debt and put a significant amount of their value into Manchester United for the good of their hearts, or are they trying to make a business decision here? Because if it's a business decision, then Manchester... you don't get to be worth 65 billion by doing charity work.
No, and this is the thing we don't know. Jim Ratcliffe's been so quiet. He hasn't come out and said, this is what I'm going to do. This is why I'm doing it.
This is the point here. Nick Tigray says the club can't be put on the debt, though, right? It doesn't matter if the club is put on the debt, right? It doesn't matter. Yes, if everything goes tits up, the banks can reclaim United in the current way that it's structured. But the whole point of what I'm trying to say is, and people have just completely missed the point of on Twitter, which is what they do. It doesn't matter if the club is in, or the debt is in the club's name or in Ineos's name. Ineos as a company has just acquired this thing which has cost them 10% of their annual turnover to acquire. They are going to want that to not just pay back what it's cost to acquire, but probably pay back a profit. So the dividends down the line are going to have to at least cover the debt that they've taken out on us. Otherwise, That's not a business decision that Ineos have done. And Ineos has got shareholders. So shareholders are not going to accept making less money on their shares because Manchester United was bought by them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe people are backing this. It's also the heist of the century what the Glazers have been allowed to do, in all honesty. It's just...
Yeah, and to be honest, it shouldn't be surprising that if that is what Jim Ratcliffe's intentions are, that there isn't more people trying to do that, because they've literally watched Man United being just like abused by the Glazers for years. This is an opportunity for someone else to do what the Glazers have done. Do you know what I mean?
And what Rob says there is very
we've missed
important.
that point as fans.
And what is the cost of the debt? Yeah, so people are trying to argue going, oh, if you can borrow at 4% and the asset returns 8%, then you're 4% up. 8% is what people aim for when it comes to investing. There's no guarantee of it. Stock markets are crashing all the time. We're about to hit one of the biggest recessions ever. Like, yes, the stock market generally bounces back and usually goes to levels and levels and levels where it currently is. But what is the predictability of the TV revenue model within football? What is the predictability of football as a product when you've got things like the Super League? Like, what if you was an investor into an Italian team in the mid-noughties? You're seeing all these attendances, all the best players in the world play here, then Juventus get convicted of match fixing and your entire league shits the bed. No TV companies wants to touch you because it's bent. No one wants to come to the league because it's rigged.
And it hasn't recovered since.
And it has not recovered in 20 years, right? Mm-hmm. So where is the model for this? There isn't one. And we might have hit saturation point with how much the Premier League especially can sell TV rights for across the world. You know, and who's to say that United don't get expelled from trying to join the Super League if we're part of that? And something that I believe you should be worried about, or at least questioning, JP Morgan was the company that was trying to, I don't know if finance is the right word, but they were involved with the European Super League. And that's the company that's underwriting Jim Ratcliffe. Is there not questions to be answered there about a possible conflict of interest with one of the major football clubs in the world also being bankrolled by the same company that's trying to force through the European Super League in JP Morgan? If that doesn't worry you, you're not paying attention. And I think if Jim Ratcliffe does want to buy the club, I think he needs to come out and explain how this debt is going to work, what the implications for Manchester United are, what the plan is to get rid of this debt, because the Glazers bought the club with the debt, put the debt on the club, which you're not allowed to do now, so that structure will not be identical. But when you look at what happened with the Glazers, and people genuinely did defend the Glazers up until about 2010. I would used to see people trying to argue with me saying, oh, look what they've done. That's not bad in a football club. The same thing people are saying now, which is what's driving me fucking bananas about it. The way people talking about what Jim Ratcliffe is doing, you just need to look. It's that is how it can work. The Glazers bought us with £600 million worth of debt. We still owe best part of 600 million on that. And the club is now worth 5 to 6 to 7 billion on the back of they bought us for 660 million.
See, are you really worried, or are you just investigating what he might do?
Both.
Yeah, because it is. I guess it is tough to know because we've heard nothing. It's just like people haven't looked into this, and this is definitely a possibility, and it's important, and it is worrying.
And then the other option, probably, is being state-owned, and I don't want that either.
That's the thing.
So what am I looking for? Probably a unicorn, right? Probably a fan, which might be a random Qatari or Saudi guy. I got no problem with a Saudi or a Qatari guy going. I just don't want the state of... I wouldn't give a fuck if it was America or England. It makes no difference where they're from for me. I just don't want to be owned by a state. It could be Bermuda. I don't want them fucking owning Manchester United. I want us to... If it's a guy who goes, listen, I've been a lifelong fan and I just happened to grow up in Riyadh, and now I'm loaded and I want to buy them. Sweet. I hope you've got people that are going to be genuine football people involved, but sweet. Wouldn't give a fuck. Would not give a fuck.
There's just risk with any owner, isn't there? There's risk with any owner. Like even like the City stuff now, like everyone thought that City were just going to be untouchable forever, but like what's going on now has just proven that like that might not be true, and you can get caught out, and I hope they do get caught out if they've done what they've been convicted of doing. But it just shows that it's happened with Chelsea, it's happening with City, it happened to United. It's like that's 3 clubs all in a very short space of time which have suffered because of their owners, big clubs. And it's like, as fans, we can have an idea of what we think will be the perfect owner, looking at what's on the table, but we'll just never know. What do you think, Ronnie? Do you think Ratcliffe's something to worry about?
From what Steve was discussing earlier in the office, I did think I was a little bit more concerned than I was.
Yeah.
Generally, I don't know, because someone did put in the comments earlier that in terms of the debt thing, that if you do scroll up, he said someone said something pretty interesting about how he.
Hang on, scroll to the bottom again. I just want to address that comment there. So David says, any new owner will want to see a return on their investment, otherwise they won't be buying us. Even City are now making money due to success. Mate, they're not. They're cooking the books to make it look like they're making money.
That fucking betting company they set up.
Yeah, like, that's the reason that they've all just been charged is because they're trying to make it look like they're making money. So they can compete under financial fair play.
And am I right in
I
thinking
don't think
that
they give a shit.
that's what Chelsea are doing well? They're making it look like they're making money.
I have no
as well.
idea. Todd Boehly might as well talk to one of the loons in the Land of Cakes down the road.
I want to speak to Todd Boehly so bad. I just want to just be like, what are you doing?
Harry says,
How are you
realistically,
doing?
correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no ethical billionaire. Yeah, but you might have ones like Jeff Bezos who are putting tags on their workers to make sure that they're going for piss breaks that aren't 15 minutes long. Not ethical, right? And then you might have people like Bill Gates who might have questionable things that he's doing in areas that he's questionable in, and I'm not going to go into them. But there are people who've become extremely wealthy. That could be part of a conglomerate. Even all right, people that have made money through oil, is that ethical, really? Or have they, what if they just got completely lucky and happened to inherit or own some land that shitloads of oil got pumped out of? Like, is that ethical? Yeah, you're probably right. Most billionaires are probably a little bit off it. And they're certainly mental in some way because they've got a level of drive most normal people don't have to just acquire so much wealth.
Some are less unethical than others, right?
But like, if it was just a random bloke, if it was just a random Qatari bloke and he's like, do you know what? I went to uni in Manchester. I fucking love it. I've been a fan ever since. Now I'm 48 and I've got 22 billion and I want a piece of that shit. Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I do think though, like Ratcliffe did come out and said, when he said about how he tried to buy Chelsea, he did that interview with the BBC, and he said, "Oh, United's not for sale." He did say though that the Glazers have mismanaged Manchester United, and he does give me the intention that he will be less bad than the Glazers at the least, because of that. Because
Nice
at
doesn't
least
fill me with confidence, though.
I know, but like taking over Nice and running Nice is completely different to taking over Manchester United and running Manchester United.
Yeah, it's a lot dearer at United.
A lot dearer. Yeah, but it's also a bigger club, and it's easier to like, get things going again, get sponsors, get this. We're there or thereabouts anyway. It should be easier to manage the club better, especially when you're taking over people who are taking money out of the club and constantly refinancing debt. That's a start. Just don't do that.
Wesley says, what happened to the consortium Webby O'Neill we're talking about? I don't know anything about that. But I also wouldn't...
What about Michael Knighton?
Let's keep it to realistic people, right? So I don't think... I mean, we did a video yesterday looking at 5 options?
Yeah.
That's not all. When Chelsea actually went to somewhere 30 plus bids. People have got till next Friday, right? There'll be people that put offers in that you never heard of. And it'll probably only come out in the wash afterwards when the Glazers go, if they ever speak about it. And they might say, yeah, we had 45 different offers. I think there'll be more offers for United than Chelsea. Even at the extra price. I really do.
The extra price and more debt.
And again, look, Rob, borrowing can be a great strategy and a shite one. Nothing coming out of JP Morgan makes me feel good about it. But this is the problem. People were saying all of this sorts of stuff, like, it reduces the tax liability. Here's the facts. The Glazers took 1.5 billion out of Manchester United for nothing. And now we're going to walk away from the casino with 5 to 6 billion cash money in the back burner, right? That
fucking
is
criminal.
If you're not concerned that Ineos would do a similar sort of thing, then I don't know what to say to you. Like, Ineos will want some sort of a return. And if Ineos end up stripping 1.5 billion over the next 10, 15 years to pay the interest on the debts that they've accrued, is that ideal for Manchester United Football Club? Has there, and where's the money coming from that needs to be invested into the stadium, into the club, into the training ground, if they're borrowing to acquire us in the first place? Why not let me buy it?
Thing is,
You haven't got the money. Neither have they.
It shouldn't be as bad as the Glazers, though, because you think that like Jim Ratcliffe would eventually pay off the debt and then eventually start investing in the club, because his company is at risk here. If Manchester United goes to shit,
Glazers.
Yeah, but like the Glazers don't.
And the Glazers went through a 2008 financial crash with that as well.
Yeah, but Ineos is a company that, like, if it's going to be so strongly linked to Manchester United, and Manchester United is a shit show, like it has been under the Glazers, the company's going to suffer. At least Jim Ratcliffe has got motivation to run Manchester United well, and he does.
Do you reckon he still lives in? Do you reckon he's still got a house in the area? Because, boy, if it does go west, I wouldn't want to be him.
He's got to keep that on the down low.
People find you with a quickness, don't they?
I'm going to be a bit optimistic about that worrying thing. I don't think he's going to be as bad as the Glazers. He could be a really good owner, but even at worst, I don't think it's going to be as bad as what we've had. Surely not, because of what I just said and other factors. Surely not. Surely. What do you think, guys?
We've got a super chat there from Lil Yo-Yo. It says, question, if the Glazers did what they have done but invested into a club, got the right people to manage, would they be better? But what, they didn't have the money to invest. Literally, they had like AAA credit ratings. Somehow went to the bank and got 600 million borrowed because of who Manchester United was. I don't even think they put down a deposit. Like, they literally just got that shit, bought us, and sat back. Now, they might have actually financed that. I think they had like 20% of shares, somewhere in the region of like maybe £100 million worth of shares before they ended up like doing the big share acquisition that they went for. They might have paid for that out of their own money. But to actually take the club entirely into their hands, that was all banks. Literally. And since then, they haven't put a penny in. All they've done is take dividends and refinance debt. And the refinancing of that debt and the interest on that has cost us 1.5 billion. And people talk about how much money United have spent on transfers. Our net transfer spend is less since the Glazers owned us than what they have spent on debt. Think about that. Now,
That's
what could that
bad.
1.5 billion be spent on? Oh, £100 million player every single summer for the last 15 fucking years.
A new stadium.
Yeah, a new stadium.
The list goes on and on.
Clear
and on.
every fucker's mortgage in the Manchester area.
Literally, me buying a fucking pencil from the mega store is putting more money into the club than the Glazers. A pencil. Or a program.
Anthony Jarvis says, no state owner has ever run a profitable business. They don't have to. Radcliffe has to the tune of 20 billion. Why am I afraid of United being run as a business? I'm not afraid of Manchester United being run as a business. Manchester United was run as a business under Martin Edwards, and it was an extremely successful one. I am worried about fucking debt.
Yeah,
that's what I'm worried about.
And that's completely understandable. How can you have the ownership we've had, which has been debt, literally abusing the club, see someone coming into the club using debt to buy it again and not be worried?
Yeah.
That's like the most natural thing ever.
Yeah, I don't know qualms. Martin Edwards was extremely successful. We said this yesterday. The 20 years that preceded Martin Edwards' sale to the Glazers was arguably the best period for Manchester United. We weren't in debt. We were the most profitable club in the world. We were also investing into the stadium every couple of years, and we were also going bananas on transfers, the likes of Wayne Rooney, Rio, and Ronaldo, and Rude, and Varane in the few years that preceded that. We broke our own wage structure for Roy Keane. In the middle of all these stadium redevelopments, we never had the excuse of Arsenal, where we invested heavily into the stadium, was like, right, that's it, no more shiny things until that's paid off. We've not gone into $1 billion of debt like Tottenham did to pay for that stadium. We went from a fucking crumbling den, post-Taylor report, to the shining jewel of English football when it came to club stadia, right? And then the Glazers bought us. And the stadium has had, apart from a little bit of fucking around with rail seats, which is cosmetics compared to the actual structural stuff that Martin Edwards did, they've done fuck all with the stadium.
Don't forget the lick of paint last season.
We did get a bit of paint, you're right. Someone found some. Alex said, with a super chat there, says, absolute lunacy that it can suck us dry with dividends and effectively a payday loan level of interest and profit without putting a penny of their own money in, and the Premier League, okay, that. I still actually haven't had anyone fully, properly explain to me why we where we had the B Sky B takeover blocked in 1998. When do you think like this was the other alternative?
Who blocked it?
The government.
And no one knows why.
I think they probably do. I don't, because I was like 14 at the time. So
Right.
I didn't fully understand it.
I don't know a lot about
And even though
that.
I've tried to look into it a little bit, I still don't fully understand it, if I'm being honest.
It's quite confusing, to be fair, all this.
It was the Monopolies and Mergers Commissioners said that they couldn't do it because there was a monopoly on Sky showing all of the TV.
Okay.
And therefore they thought they were just going to show United or something along those lines. It was Lee says, don't forget training facilities as well. Used to be cutting edge before the Glazers. Sorry, yeah, Martin Edwards, 2001, moved into Carrington after being at the Cliff. Look, what Martin Edwards did was bonkers. No dramas whatsoever with United being run as a business. The drama is that you're being run as a business while someone's siphoning out money to pay for debt because they couldn't afford to buy you in the first place. And the problem is the Glazers have overseen this increase in Manchester United's value, probably by 10x from what they paid for us back in 2005. Arguably not really through much that they've done themselves, just because football itself has gone through this massive transformation in the last 20 years. And now it's almost made us prohibitively expensive. The last opportunity United fans had to probably own the Glazers was to stop the Glazers in the first place in 2005. And I think that horse has bolted now. I don't think we'll ever see Manchester United fans owning Manchester United unless one of these absolutely bananas billionaires leaves the club to the fans in his will and pisses off his entire family.
And the chances of that are very small,
Slim.
I imagine.
Righty.
Just a bit.
Happy?
Yeah,
Until
good
the
crack.
Glazers are gone,
Right,
mate.
one last question. Would you go out of the Europa? If someone said to you now, we lose to Barcelona and we win the League Cup, would you take it?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, me
I
too.
think that's
Would
happening
you?
anyway. I think that's happening anyway.
Yeah.
Sweet. Come on then.
Righty. Cheers for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe. If you want to watch Ronaldo's pretty little face as we go around an aquarium next week, hit subscribe on the Patreon. Go check out Circle as well. They're going to be supporting us till the end of the season. So check the link in the description for that. And we will see you guys in the next one. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.